If I hadn't forgotten my wallet, I never would have seen it. I still think about that sometimes, how the stupidest little mistakes wreck your whole life. It was a Saturday. Hot. Carla and I were supposed to go out later, grab dinner, maybe a movie. But that morning, she said she already had plans with Jin. Girls' brunch, she said, tying her hair up while scrolling her phone. Probably gonna run long. You should just do your own thing for the day. Nothing suspicious about it. Carla and Jin had been close for years. I didn't even blink. Told her to have fun. Kissed her on the cheek. Watched her back out of the driveway in that blue sundress she hadn't worn in months, the one I used to love. The one she stopped wearing around me. An hour later, I realized I left my wallet at home. Pulled a U-turn, cursing under my breath, and drove back into town. I figured I'd grab lunch to kill some time, maybe find a hardware store afterward to pick up parts for the sink that had been leaking all week. I was pulling into the lot at Sal's diner when I saw them. It wasn't just that it was Carla. It was how she looked. Flushed. Smiling. Alive in a way I hadn't seen in months. She stood under the awning with Mike, a guy I knew from the shop. We weren't best friends, but we were close enough that he'd been to our barbecue last fall, drunk enough to call me brother more than once. Mike leaned in, laughing at something she said, his hand brushing the small of her back for just a second. Not an accident. Not casual. The kind of touch a man knows he shouldn't make unless he's already gotten permission. Carla didn't flinch. She didn't step back. She smiled. Wide. Warm. The way she used to smile at me. I dropped down behind a parked SUV before they could spot me. Heart hammering. Mouth dry. They stood there for a few minutes, Mike leaning in close, Carla looking up at him, laughing again, and then they broke apart. Walked to separate cars like strangers. Clean. Careful. This wasn't their first time. I sat in my truck for a long time after they pulled out of the lot. Watching people come and go. Mothers wrangling kids. Old men in fishing hats arguing over breakfast bills. I gripped the wheel so hard my fingers ached. She lied to me. Right to my face. Told me she was with Jin, 30 miles away, sipping mimosas and bitching about men. And instead she was here. With Mike. Smiling in the sun like she didn't have a husband who was too stupid to know better. When I got home that afternoon, Carla was already back. She was sitting on the couch, barefoot, painting her nails like nothing had happened. Hey, babe, she called over her shoulder. How was your day? I stared at her for a second too long. She noticed. Raised an eyebrow. Tilted her head the way she did when she thought I was being moody. Everything okay? I forced a smile. Yeah. Long line at the store. She nodded like she bought it. And just like that, we went back to normal. Or at least, she did. I sat across from her, watching her blow on her toes, laughing at some stupid TV show, acting like I wasn't choking on the smell of Mike's cologne still clinging to her skin. That night in bed, she rolled over and tucked herself under my arm like she used to do when we first moved in together. I stayed stiff, staring at the ceiling. She mumbled something about how we should take a trip soon. Somewhere warm. Maybe Mexico. Get away. I didn't answer. Because part of me already knew there was no getaway big enough to outrun what she'd done. I didn't sleep. Instead, I lay there, replaying everything. The new gym membership she got but never seemed to use. The way her phone was suddenly password protected when for years we had open access to each other's. The late nights at work that didn't match her paycheck. The lingerie shoved into drawers I hadn't seen her wear for me in years. It was all there. Always had been. I just didn't want to see it. The next morning, I made coffee. Sat across from her while she scrolled her phone. Watched her laugh at some meme she didn't bother to share with me. Watched her sip from the mug I bought her for our 3rd anniversary, the one that said, "Best wife ever" in fading gold script. I should have confronted her. Should have thrown the mug against the wall. Should have screamed. But I didn't. Because I needed to know more. If it was Mike, who else? How long? Had I ever really known her at all? I called a private investigator that afternoon. Ross McCann. Ex-cop. Looked like he slept in his truck and didn't believe in small talk. I didn't give him the whole story. Just Carla's name. Her work schedule. Her gym. Her favorite coffee shop. And one line. I think my wife's cheating. I need proof. He didn't ask why. Just quoted me a number and said he'd call when he had something real. I went home that night and kissed Carla on the forehead like nothing had changed. Listened to her ramble about some girl from work who was getting married. Listened to her laugh about how some people are so bad at hiding their affairs. She actually said that. Swirled her wine glass in her hand, smiled, and said it like she had no idea I'd seen her. No idea I was setting the trap. I sat on the back porch after she went to bed. Smoked a cigarette even though I'd quit 2 years ago. Listened to the neighbor's dog bark at nothing. Stared at the moon until my eyes burned. Somewhere out there, Mike was probably texting her, smiling into his phone like he had something that belonged to him. And maybe he did. Maybe she had never really been mine after all. The worst part wasn't knowing she lied. It was knowing the lies had been so easy for her. Like breathing. Like blinking. And if she could lie about today, what else had she been lying about? I didn't know it yet, but the truth was worse than anything I was ready for. Because Mike wasn't the only one. Not even close. And when Ross called me 2 weeks later, what he had wasn't just proof of an affair. It was proof I'd been living with a stranger for years. The call came 2 weeks later. Middle of a Tuesday. I was restocking bolts in the warehouse when Ross's number flashed across my screen. I wiped the sweat off my palms before answering. "You might want to sit down," Ross said. No greeting. No bullshit. My stomach twisted. "When can you meet?" he asked. "Now," I said. We met at a chain coffee shop off the interstate, bland, empty, anonymous. Ross was already sitting at a corner table when I walked in. He had a battered laptop open and a folder thick enough to jam a filing cabinet. He didn't waste time. Just turned the screen toward me and clicked through photos. The first few I was ready for. Carla and Mike. Different days. Different places. Always careful. Always separate cars. Always some excuse ready if they got caught. One shot. Her getting into Mike's truck in the Target parking lot. Another. Them walking side by side out of a sports bar downtown. Not touching, but you can see it in the lean of their bodies. The way they orbited each other without quite connecting. Ross flipped to the next folder. This is where it gets worse. Second man. A guy I didn't recognize. Younger. Tattoos. Some bartender at a place she told me she hated because the music's too loud. Photos of her waiting for him outside after closing, slipping into his passenger seat, smiling like she was 18 again. Third man. A neighbor. Fucking Kyle, the guy who asked me to help him build a shed last summer. There she was, in broad daylight, stepping into his garage with 2 coffee cups, staying inside for over an hour. Ross sat back, watching me. Arms crossed. Eyes flat. 3 confirmed, he said. Maybe more. I flipped through the rest of the folder in silence. Credit card charges for hotel rooms booked at weird hours. Phone logs showing late-night calls to numbers saved under fake women's names. Photos. Receipts. Maps. It wasn't new. It wasn't a fling. It was a pattern. A second life. One she'd been living alongside mine without even blinking. How far back? I asked finally, voice rough. Ross tapped the folder. First clear evidence? Almost 5 years ago. I did the math. We'd been married 8. She started cheating before our 3rd anniversary. Probably earlier. Probably from the beginning. I closed the folder, hands steady even though I felt like I was falling through the floor. Thanks, I said. Ross shrugged like it didn't matter to him either way. You want me to keep digging? I thought about it. Thought about whether I could stomach knowing more. No, I said. If anything else was out there, it didn't matter anymore. The woman I thought I married was already dead. I didn't go home right away. I drove around for a while. Past the diner where we used to have breakfast on Sundays. Past the park where we took our engagement photos. Past the gym she said she spent so many hours at. The one Ross said she hadn't set foot inside for months. Everywhere I went, memories cracked and broke under my tires. Everywhere I looked, I realized how much of my life had been a lie. That night, Carla was waiting for me when I finally came home. She had dinner on the table, lasagna, my favorite, candles lit, wine poured. Some sixth sense must have kicked in. Maybe she could feel it. The shift. Hey, babe, she said, too bright. Rough day. I stared at her. At the table she sat. At the pretty dress she wore, the same one she wore on our 5th anniversary. Back when I still thought she loved me. Back when I still thought I mattered. I sat down across from her. Took a long sip of wine. Studied her face, the fake smile, the careful eyes. I wondered if she even remembered who she used to be before all the lying started. Or if this woman, this hollow, polished, practiced liar, was all that was left. She made small talk. Asked about work. Laughed at her own jokes. Touched my hand once, then pulled back when I didn't react. I let her fill the silence. Let her hang herself with every word. Because I wasn't rushing this. I wasn't going to blow up in the kitchen like some drunk on a bad sitcom. I was going to be patient. And then I was going to take everything. When she finally gave up trying to chat and started clearing plates, she asked over her shoulder. You're being weird tonight. What's going on? I smiled. Not a nice smile. Not the kind of smile you give someone you love. Nothing, I said. Just tired. She nodded like she believed it. Because she always thought I was slow. Trusting. Easy. That was her biggest mistake. Thinking I wouldn't figure it out. Thinking I'd stay. I lay awake that night while she slept beside me. Listened to the shallow rise and fall of her breath. Watched the moonlight stretch across the bed we used to share in more ways than just sleeping. I thought about the men. About the coffee dates and motel rooms and backseat quickies while I sat at home fixing leaking pipes and planning vacations we never took. I thought about all the times she hugged me a little too tight when she got home late. All the mornings she smiled a little too wide when she said she loved me. And I thought about what I was going to do next. Because revenge wasn't going to be loud. It wasn't going to be messy. It was going to be slow, cold, final. And she wouldn't see it coming. Knowing the truth changed everything. Not all at once. Not like flipping a switch. It was slower than that, like rot spreading under the floorboards. And I let it spread. I didn't move out. I didn't pack a bag or crash at a buddy's place. I stayed. Same house. Same bed. Same mornings eating toast across the kitchen table from the woman who'd spent years smiling in other men's faces. It wasn't hard. Because once you really see someone, I mean really see them, you can't unsee it. The love didn't burn out in a blaze. It just withered. Dried up. Turned into something brittle and sharp inside me. Carla noticed the difference. Of course she did. At first, she tried to smother it. Started dressing up more around the house. Bought my favorite whiskey. Made dinner 3 nights in a row, acting like she cared about anything besides saving face. She laughed too hard at my bad jokes. Touched my arm too often when she thought I wasn't noticing. I noticed. I noticed everything. And I gave her nothing back. The sex stopped too. At first, she pretended not to notice, making little excuses about headaches, long days, early meetings. But by the 3rd week of silence, she started reaching for me at night, sliding her hand across the sheets, pressing her body against mine like she could will the past back. I stayed cold, motionless, until she finally gave up and rolled away, facing the wall. Good. Let her learn what it felt like to be unwanted. Meanwhile, I started pulling my pieces off the board. Quietly. I opened a separate bank account. Small deposits first, barely noticeable. Then my entire paycheck. Redirected the house bills into my name. Shut down the joint savings account without telling her. She'd notice eventually. But by the time she did, the money would be gone. And she'd be scrambling for scraps. Socially, I played it slower. I didn't blow up her world overnight. I just stopped covering for her. When friends asked why she missed the last barbecue, I didn't lie anymore. Didn't say work or busy. I just shrugged. She's got other priorities these days, I said once. Simple. Quiet. Enough to make people wonder. And once people start wondering, they start talking. Carla felt it. Felt the space opening up between her and the world she used to own. She started picking fights over nothing. Snapping about the dishes. Accusing me of pulling away. Once, she cornered me in the hallway, eyes wide, desperate. What's happening to us? She asked. I looked at her. At the woman who thought she could fuck around for years and still come home to safety. And I said the most honest thing I could. You're just seeing it now. After that, she got worse. Started drinking more. Started leaving for errands that lasted hours. Started crying in the bathroom when she thought I couldn't hear. Sometimes she tried to bait me, accused me of cheating, of hiding something. I almost laughed. Imagine that. The woman who turned our marriage into a joke thinking she had the right to be suspicious. Through it all, I stayed steady. Made my plans. Talked to the lawyer Ross recommended. Learned the angles, how to trap her with evidence, how to bleed her dry in court, how to walk away clean. No messy fights. No loud scenes. Just cold, methodical removal. A man dismantling a house brick by brick. But I didn't strike yet. Not because I doubted. Because I wanted her to feel it. The slow sinking. The dread she couldn't name yet. The panic leaking into every smile, every good morning. I wanted her to drown in it. The same way she left me drowning all those years she smiled across the table at me with someone else's taste still on her lips. Some nights I couldn't sleep. Lying there next to her. Listening to the hollow breathing of a woman who didn't even know she was already dead to me. I thought about the men. Not their faces, they didn't matter. Just the way she looked at them. The way she must have laughed. Tucked her hair behind her ear. Said she loved me in the morning after fucking them the night before. It made my hands clench under the sheets. But not with sadness. Not anymore. Just a cold, clear rage. A fire that didn't burn hot. A fire that burned clean. And then came the final confirmation. One night, Carla stumbled in late from dinner with the girls, drunk, tired, careless. I watched her strip down and pass out face first on the bed. Her phone buzzed twice on the nightstand. I didn't snoop. Didn't need to. The preview lit up the screen. Miss your mouth already. Let's make Friday a sure thing. Red heart. No name. Just a number. Not Mike's number. Another one. Another life she thought she could keep hidden. Another shovel of dirt on the grave she was digging herself. I looked at her lying there, vulnerable, wrecked, pathetic, and I felt nothing. Not pity, not grief, not even anger, just calm. Because I finally understood. I wasn't married anymore. Hadn't been for years. I was just standing in the ruins, taking my time to light the last match. And soon, very soon, I was going to strike it. The final stages came faster than I thought. Once the court dates were locked, once the paperwork was filed, it felt like gravity took over. The weight of everything she'd done, everything she'd hidden, finally dragging her down the way it should have from the beginning. She didn't even show up for half the meetings. Sent lawyers instead. Thin, embarrassed little people who tried to argue technicalities while the evidence sat there like a loaded gun. Receipts. Hotel charges. Texts. Photos. Signed. Dated. Undeniable. Carla's face when she realized there was no way out. No loophole, no pity to pull her through, is something I'll never forget. A kind of hollow terror. Like she'd finally seen herself the way the rest of us did. The court awarded me almost everything. The house. The cars. The majority of the savings. Carla got a car she could barely afford to maintain and a credit score that would keep her renting apartments the size of broom closets for years. She tried to fight for alimony. But the proof Ross and I had stacked up against her turned the whole conversation into a joke. My lawyer didn't even have to raise his voice. The judge barely looked at her twice. On the day the papers were finalized, she didn't come. Sent another lawyer. Fine. I signed. Sealed it. And when I walked out of that courthouse into the gray afternoon, I didn't feel free. Didn't feel victorious. Just lighter. Like shrugging off a coat you forgot you were wearing. One so soaked through with her lies it was dragging you down with every step. Carla's world crumbled quietly after that. Friends stopped returning her calls. Her sister barely spoke to her. Her parents, who once sent her happy anniversary cards, moved out of state without telling her until the moving van was already in the driveway. Work was gone. Money was bleeding out through court fees and rent. And the worst part? No one cared. No one showed up with sympathy. No one offered to save her. She had built a house of cards on top of quicksand. All I did was step back and let it sink. I didn't check in. Didn't gloat. I didn't need to. I already knew how it was going to end. With her sitting alone, replaying every decision she made. Wishing she'd realized what she had before she spent it on men who didn't even bother to stay. As for me, I rebuilt quietly. Refinanced the house. Cleared out the old photos. Started new routines that didn't have her fingerprints on them. But I didn't rush to move on. I didn't slap a fresh coat of paint over the cracks. I lived in it. In the loneliness. In the emptiness. I made peace with it. Because better an empty house than one built on lies. And somewhere in the city, Carla drifted. Friendless. Broke. Disgraced. Exactly where she had put herself. I thought that was it. I thought the story ended there. Clean, cold, final. I thought she was gone for good. I was wrong. I didn't expect to see her again. After the divorce papers were signed, after the house was in my name alone, after she packed her things into the back seat of a borrowed car and drove off without a real goodbye, I thought that was the last page. Done. Finished. But liars never know when to quit. The first text came a month later. I'm sorry. I miss you. No punctuation. No grand speech. I stared at the screen for a long time. Didn't answer. Didn't even think about it. Deleted the message and went back to fixing the porch light she'd spent 3 years nagging me about. 2 weeks after that, she showed up in person. Late. Drunk. Wearing an old hoodie she used to steal from my side of the closet. I almost didn't open the door. But I did. Maybe because part of me wanted to see how far she'd fallen. Maybe because part of me wanted to see if she still looked like the woman who ruined me. She stood there shivering, rain in her hair, mascara smudged under her eyes. I just want to talk, she said. I let her in. Because I wasn't afraid of her anymore. She tried to explain. Tried to spin years of betrayal into confusion. Loneliness. Mistakes she'd never meant to make. I listened. Not because I believed any of it, but because it was fascinating watching someone realize too late that some bridges don't rebuild, some wounds don't clot. When she finished, when her voice cracked and her hands shook, I didn't say anything. I just stared at her until she looked away, until she knew there was no forgiveness coming. But bodies remember what minds want to forget. And that night, against every shred of sense and pride I had left, I let her climb into my bed. No words, no promises, just broken people doing what broken people do best, pretending for a few hours that loneliness can be mistaken for love. It wasn't tender, wasn't passionate. It was mechanical, animal, need clashing against need. Afterward, she tried to stay, curled into my side, like old times, whispered stupid things into the dark. Maybe we can fix this. Maybe we're stronger now. I stood up without a word, grabbed her clothes from the floor, dropped them on the bed beside her. You need to go, I said. Her mouth opened, some protest half-formed. I didn't wait. I turned, walked out onto the porch, lit a cigarette, listened to the shuffle of her getting dressed, the soft click of the door closing behind her. Didn't watch her leave. Didn't need to. It happened a few more times. Not often. Always late. Always drunk. Always desperate. Sometimes I answered the door. Sometimes I didn't. When I did, it was always the same. Bodies colliding. Mouths moving without meaning. And afterward, silence. Colder than before. She kept trying to crawl back emotionally. Little texts. Thinking about you. Wish you were here. I ignored most. Sometimes, on the loneliest nights, I responded with a single word. Nothing kind. Nothing warm. Just enough to remind her. She could touch my body. But my soul? She'd killed that already. The last time she came over, something changed. Maybe it was the way she cried into my pillow after. Maybe it was the way she tried, really tried, to fold herself back into my life without asking if she was welcome. Maybe it was the way she said, I'll never hurt you again. Like it mattered. I stood over her, looking down at the shell of a woman who once promised me forever. And I felt nothing. Not hate. Not anger. Not even pity. Just emptiness. I told her to leave. This time, when she begged, when she clutched at my shirt like a child. I peeled her off and shut the door behind her. Locked it. Bolted it. Turned off the porch light. And I didn't open it again. She still tries sometimes. A text on a holiday. A memory she shares uninvited. A reminder that she's still out there. Still hoping for a crack in the wall she helped build. I don't block her. Blocking would mean I cared enough to protect myself. I don't. I just let her messages rot in my inbox. Unread. Unanswered. The way she deserves. As for me, I'm not whole. Probably never will be. Love doesn't grow back once it's been poisoned that deep. Trust doesn't resurrect itself just because you miss it. But I'm alive. I'm free. And every day that I wake up alone in a clean bed, with no lies lingering in the sheets, is another day she doesn't get to steal from me. She ruined us. She ruined herself. And in the end, all she earned was a front row seat to a life she's not allowed in anymore. A life where the only thing left between us is silence.